Hello, so apology for what might seem like a clickbaity title, but I wanted to actually see something. And that's, would a newspaper save your life if somebody attempted to stab you? Now obviously in the UK we have lots of problems with sort of knife crime and things like that. So what I wanted to establish is if somebody attacked you with a knife, you couldn't afford body armour or couldn't get body armour, as in proper body armour, could newspaper be used to protect you? Now obviously I'm going to say that in this video that be very careful if you attempt something like this for your own protection. I would always advise you go with proper stuff if you can afford it. But you know, obviously this might be better than nothing for some people. So Weapon Collector recently did a very good video talking about sort of stuff to keep you safe from knife crime. I'd recommend watching that. But, oh, that's funny, there's actually a newspaper bit there that says knife crime epidemic. So as you can see, it's all pretty relevant stuff. So what I've got is just a load of newspapers. Some of them are free newspapers, some of them are paid for newspapers. Obviously I didn't pay for any of these, but just standard bulk newspapers. I think they're all sort of like tabloid style ones, not broadsheets. And I've got 3 knives. I've got an open hour with a locking collar, I've got a Fairbairn Sykes commando knife, and I've got a Swiss bayonet. And the whole point of this is these 2 knives especially should be very good at stabbing. So what I want to see is, will this stand up to this? Now, I know some people argue you've got these on the floor and that's not good enough because that's a hard floor, you should have it on something soft. I don't think for a test like this it really matters, because we're seeing can the knives penetrate the paper, not, you know, could the knives penetrate the floor. Because obviously if it gets through all the paper, then if it was under you, yes, you would get stabbed. So let's start off with the most likely to penetrate, I'd guess, which is the big bayonet. So what we're going to do is, we've got quite a lot of papers here. What I want to do is, if we establish this stops the knife, I want to then go to less layers of paper. So right, let's start off with the bayonet. Right, that's obviously gone through a bit. Let's measure how far that's gone through. Right, it's stopped at this far. Now, I'm not sure how well I'm going to be able to show you this on camera, but you can probably see that's like 3 or 4 newspapers. I think that might just be 3 newspapers. So what I'm going to do now is, let's take away a load of these papers and let's go to, let's say, 4. So what we're going to do is, we're going to get these newspapers and we're just going to fold them, you know, like that. And I'll put that one back on the top again. Obviously, yeah, the amount of pages and lots of things is going to depend on this, but what we've done now is we've got 4 newspapers, so that's 4 newspapers together. That wouldn't be too excessive if you were to wear that in a jacket somehow as armour. Now obviously I'd recommend more layers than this, and as I said, I'd definitely recommend real armour as opposed to this, but let's see if this consistently can stop the bayonet getting through it. Right, how was that done? Yep, that's not penetrated all the way. That has gone through about 2 of the newspapers. Okay, let's try again. Again, it's not gone all the way through. So what I'm going to do now is just do a quick sort of frenzied stabbing type thing to it and see if any of those go through. And the answer is no. They're not going through all the layers of newspaper. As you might be able to see from this, I don't think there's any in the bottom layer. The 3rd newspaper down has a couple of little holes in it, but not gone all the way through. So it seems you definitely need at least 4 newspapers folded, and obviously, as I said, sizes will vary and things like that. In a minute I want to see if I can get something soft to put under these, just to see how that might affect the results. But okay, so the bayonet has not gone all the way through, so we've learnt that, you know, it stops the bayonet. Let's try the Fairbairn Sykes knife now. As you can see that, like the first layer, it goes all the way through, no problem. But it's not managing to get through a lot of the layers, so let's just do some more. But yeah, I'd say that's consistently stopping all of those. So what we've learnt so far is that the Fairbairn Sykes and the bayonet, which would be knives that are very efficient at stabbing, can't actually get through 4 layers of newspaper when they're folded, or 4, you know, actual newspapers folded. Let's just try the open now, because this is like, you know, a knife somebody might be more likely to carry. and as you can probably see, that's even less effective at going through because it's got the wider blade on it. So that's managed about 2 papers there. Okay, so what we can see is that if they're at least on a hard surface, the newspapers, like 4 newspapers are going to stop the knives going through. So what I want to do now is find something soft I can put these on, you know, just to satisfy the argument some people have of this isn't a realistic way of testing them, you need something soft like the human body underneath, and then we'll see if they still can manage to stop the blades. Okay, so again, apologies, this is not going to be the most scientific thing in the world, but what I've got is a cushion and a pillow. So what I'm going to do is put the cushion down first, so we'll have the cushion there, then we're going to fold the pillow in half. There you go, you've obviously got, see if I can get that to be sort of flat-ish, but hopefully that is a bit more like what your body would be like, just for the sort of scientific sake of, you know, arguing. Right, I'm just going to get another newspaper, just so I've got a fresh one on top, because obviously some of these have got quite a few holes in so far. And let's try then the bayonet and see what happens. Right, that has not gone through all the papers. I think that's gone even less through this time. Let's try again. Right, that time we've got a bit more success. But, again, it's not gone through all the layers, so let's try this again with the bayonet. And again, I'd say yes, when it's on a surface that gives way a bit, the bayonet will go in further. However, it's still not, you know, managing to penetrate all the way through. So that's quite good. Obviously, it is going to depend on the type of knife used, how much force the person exerts trying to stab, but what we can establish at least is the, you know, layers of newspaper are working. Now, as you might be able to see, the more times it gets stabbed, the more it's giving up, so you would have to bear that in mind, that, you know, this isn't going to, you'd want to replace newspapers, but I think that'd be the least of your worries, wouldn't it, if you'd survived the stabbing. Right, so let's try the FS knife now and see what that does. Yep, that seems to be working pretty well. So again, none of these have gone all the way through. So that's a really good thing to actually see, is that, yeah, this could work. Okay, so let's try the open now again. And see if we have any luck with this. And the answer is no, that's obviously penetrating less, excuse me, than things like the bayonet did, because the bayonet's obviously got more weight and a sharper point to it. So, we've established that by having 4 or 5 folded newspapers, obviously it is going to depend on the size, that will stop knives going through. So, yeah, that would protect you. So now what we need to know is, can you put something like this in a jacket easily and have it as an armoured layer? So let's now work that out. Okay, so now we get to the question, can you wear these under a jacket? Now, obviously, I'm sure some jackets are better than this than others. Somewhere, and I don't know where it is typically when I want to film a video on it, I have a jacket that's got like a weird inner liner where you can, you know, use almost like a pocket. But could you wear this against yourself and have a jacket done up over it? The answer is going to be yes, but is there a particularly good way of doing it? Now, what Weapon Collector and a few other people have suggested in some of their videos is you could always get a backpack or something, stick a load of magazines or newspapers in that, and then use that. Right, obviously this isn't held in place, so this isn't ideal, but as you can see you can have that many layers of newspaper under there. That's going to give you a little bit of protection, not loads, from somebody punching you as well. So yeah, that's not too bad. The good thing about the newspapers is they do kind of conform to the shape of your body. Obviously, because they curve, that's the nice thing with newspapers. What I'd be really interested in seeing is if there is some sort of jacket where the jacket itself is the right shape or got the right kind of liner in it, where you could get the newspapers and properly fold them around, so you could do enough layers of that they end up essentially just being like, you know, a layer of padding in the jacket, so it might keep you warm, but you've actually got a level of stab protection from that. But as you can hear, that's in there. Obviously this isn't ideal because I imagine if you're walking about for too long the newspapers would fall out. But this was just kind of a proof of concept, could it be done? And the answer is yes, it could. So, you know, you can have newspapers in there to protect you from a knife coming in. As said, if it was me personally, I'd want more layers of newspaper than that to feel safe, and as I said, ideally you want actual proper stab-proof armour. You know, don't risk your life if you can avoid it with, you know, using newspapers. But it's certainly better than nothing. Now, what also might be an idea is, let's see if you can do it with this. What I'm sort of thinking is some coats with, like I was saying, internal pockets, you may be able to, you know, like get the papers in the internal pockets like that. Obviously this isn't what ideal because that's only one layer, but then you have got sort of, you know, paper in there. But yeah, the idea is finding a jacket or something, if you were wanting it in a jacket, where all the newspapers could be actually stored inside and there's no risk of them falling out. You could obviously buy an actual body armour liner type thing, like getting an official stab vest, and then if you couldn't afford the Kevlar filler or whatever, stick newspapers in. I think that would work as well. Obviously the paper has to be thicker than something like Kevlar or a stab layer to work, but it's still the exact same concept. It's lots and lots of layers that act together to stop something stabbing through. So anyway, I hope this video has been useful. I mean, I really hope nobody actually has to rely on this, but you never know. So, as said, you can have newspapers inside a jacket, and, you know, that will actually, it seems, stop knives, and we tested it on both the cushions and the hard floor. Both times the bayonets couldn't get through, which, you know, gives me enough hope that that would actually work. As said, the more layers of paper, the more efficient it's going to work, but it's going to add more bulk and it's going to be more inconvenient. They don't weigh that much, at least being, you know, paper. That's going to be a couple of 100 grams at that. You know, you could easily carry that around on you all day. As said, there'll be smarter ways you can do this. Somebody who's cleverer than me, or, you know, got a bit more thought put into it, will be able to think of ways, maybe I could, you know, set up a coat in a certain way with it and all that sort of stuff. But as I said, as Weapon Collector and other people have said before, you can get bags, and you can certainly put a load of newspapers or magazines in the bag, and then that could be used as a shield if need be. You know, you could have it in your rucksack and you could hold that out in front of you if somebody came at you with a knife. Not ideal, but it's better than nothing. But as said, ideally you do want to buy, if you think you're going to need it, real body armour. If you want something that's brand new, got a guarantee and custom fitted to you, you're going to have to spend a few £100. If you want to buy, like I did, Police Surplus on eBay, often those vests are between like £40 and £60 for the ex-police Kevlar vest with a stab-proof layer on, or you know, dedicated stab vests. So you know, they're options. But yeah, hopefully that's given you something to think about, and as I said, I really hope nobody actually has to rely on this, but you know, I think this is good stuff to know in a scenario where you may have to actually rely on something like this. So yeah. The answer is newspaper could indeed save your life if somebody was attacking you with a knife. You know, enough layers of newspaper, as predicted, will stop a knife blade, but it seems out you only need like 4 or 5 newspapers folded over once, and that is actually thick enough that bayonets and even, like, you know, knives designed for piercing can't get through them. So, as I said, hopefully nobody actually has to rely on this, but it is good information to know.